Sometimes, all it takes is one sentence. One sentence, spoken at the right time, in the right place, to crack an entire system wide open. And on a nearly empty night in Congress, with the C-SPAN cameras rolling on what should have been another forgettable hearing, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was about to say it. The scene is a late-night congressional hearing, just before midnight. The room is half empty, buzzing with the low murmur of tired aides and shuffling papers. Most of America is asleep, but Jasmine Crockett is wide awake. She'd already spoken, but a male colleague, Representative Pratt, had just cut her off, laughing, dismissing her like she was some intern who didn't know her place. And in that moment, something inside her lit up. She sits still for a second, her eyes fixed. Then her microphone clicks back on. "I'm not done," she says. Her voice is calm, but it cuts through the room like a knife. Pratt tries to object, but she keeps going, turning slightly toward the chairman. "You want to talk about family values?" she asks. A few heads lift from their phones. Someone leans forward. "You want to lecture this country about loyalty and strong marriages?" She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. "Then let's talk about the pattern of silence we keep seeing at the very top," she says, letting the words hang in the air. "Tell me, when's the last time we saw the First Lady smile next to the President without a camera forcing it?" The room goes dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Crockett leans in. "You want America to believe in a picture-perfect marriage, but the First Lady's ring hasn't seen sunlight in weeks, and everybody knows it." A gasp. A muffled cough that sounded a lot like a laugh. The chairman fumbles for his gavel, unsure what to do. "You can't weaponize your wife's image," she finishes, and then acts surprised when someone calls it what it is, a performance, and a bad one. Pratt's face is beet red. The chairman taps his gavel weakly. "That's enough, Congresswoman." But it was enough. In less than 2 minutes, Jasmine Crockett had said the one thing everyone was thinking, but nobody dared to say out loud. The clip didn't just go online. It detonated. By 2 a.m., it was everywhere. Hashtag Melania Missing was trending. Jasmine's words weren't just a political jab. They were a cultural earthquake. Some were furious. She crossed a line. But for millions of others, especially women, they heard something else. They heard the sound of crack forming on a perfectly polished, but completely unbelievable surface. It wasn't really about Melania. It was about silence. It was about power. And it was about how even the most visible women in the world can vanish in plain sight. By sunrise, the White House issued a furious statement condemning the inappropriate personal attacks. But it was too late. The words were out, and they had already done their work. As the sun came up, the West Wing was in full-blown panic mode. Trump was pacing in the private dining room, practically steaming. "She called my wife a prisoner," he snapped at his chief of staff, Brian Kessler. "You hit back. Call her unhinged. Call her trash. Make it go away." But Kessler knew it wasn't that simple. This wasn't a typical political attack. This felt different. The communications team scrambled. One junior staffer suggested the obvious. Release a new, happy photo of the President and First Lady. Simple damage control. Kessler shut it down instantly. "She's not doing that." "What do you mean?" An aide asked. "She's not doing photos," he repeated, his voice flat. "She's not speaking. She's not responding." The room went cold. Melania had refused. No statement, no tweet, no scripted appearance to save face. Trump had apparently stormed into the East Wing that morning, demanding she stand beside him for a 2-minute photo op. The door stayed closed. A text from her team came minutes later. "The First Lady is not available at this time." He was furious, betrayed. But the more he raged, the worse it looked. Every angry tweet he drafted just made Crockett look more composed. And then Melania's silence started to speak for itself. That afternoon, a photo, snapped by a delivery driver and posted to Reddit, went nuclear. It showed Melania leaving a side entrance of the residence. No staff, no smile, just sunglasses, a neutral face, and no ring. Inside the White House, Trump slammed the door so hard a portrait fell crooked. He was losing control, not just of the narrative, but of his own house. And Jasmine Crockett? She posted just one thing on her Instagram story. A black screen with white text. Truth doesn't need to yell. The conversation shifted from Crockett's nerve to a question that started as a whisper and became a roar. Is Melania okay? People started digging. Old clips resurfaced. Melania subtly flinching away from Trump's touch at the Easter egg roll. Melania walking ahead of him at a state dinner, never looking back. Body language experts weighed in. Former staffers, speaking anonymously, all said the same thing. She lives her own schedule. She doesn't ask permission anymore. Honestly, I think she's checked out. Checked out. That phrase caught fire. It wasn't just about the First Lady anymore. It was about every woman who had ever smiled when she didn't want to, stood next to a man because it was expected, or been told to be pretty and poised while the world burned down around her. In Philadelphia, women held a silent rally. Their signs read, "You don't have T.O. smile." And silence is a sentence, too. The more sympathy grew for Melania, the brighter Jasmine Crockett's star burned. She didn't hide. She walked into a live TV interview. Cool as ever. The host, Shay Randall, came out swinging. "Congresswoman, people are calling your remarks dangerous." Jasmine didn't blink. "I said what I saw," she replied. "And a lot of other people saw it, too. They just didn't say it out loud." Shay pushed. "Are you accusing the First Lady of being trapped?" Jasmine let out a short breath. "I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm pointing out what women across this country have been whispering about for years. The performance of happiness. The expectation that we smile and look good next to men who disrespect us." She leaned in. "You want to know what's dangerous? Telling women to be quiet because a powerful man feels embarrassed. That's dangerous." That clip hit over 2 million views in a few hours. Support poured in. Donations to her campaign flooded her office. One note, attached to a $10 donation, read, "For every woman who smiled through it." Of course, the machine fought back. A slickly produced smear ad appeared on Facebook, splicing clips of Jasmine with burning flags, warning of radical disruptors. A truck started circling her neighborhood in Dallas, blaring the ad on a loop. Threatening calls flooded her office. But every attack just made her supporters dig in deeper. At a town hall in Fort Worth, she stood before a packed gymnasium. "They're not afraid because I lied," she told a roaring crowd. "They're afraid because I told the truth." And then something incredible happened. Other women in power started to speak up. A congresswoman from Arizona, then another from Oregon. They weren't just defending Crockett. They were sharing their own stories about being told to wear soft colors and not criticize men too directly, about being warned not to mention their divorce because voters want a wholesome family image. A former First Lady, not Melania, posted a simple message. Sometimes silence isn't a choice. It's survival. It was shared millions of times. A new hashtag emerged. #SeenAndSilent. It wasn't angry. It was reflective. Women posted pictures of themselves from moments in their lives when they were seen but not heard. It was a collective digital catharsis. Jasmine Crockett hadn't just spoken truth. She had given millions of people permission to acknowledge their own. But one woman remained silent, and her silence was the loudest statement of all. 2 weeks after Crockett's initial comment, the White House hosted a big veterans event in Tampa. It was meant to be a reset. Trump walked on stage, but the chair beside him, the one reserved for First Lady, was empty. He mumbled a quick, "Melania sends her regards," and moved on. But the image of that empty chair was deafening. It was plastered across every news site. The empty seat beside the president. It was no longer a question of if something was wrong. It was a symbol of it. That night, a blurry, silent video leaked from inside the White House. It showed Melania walking down a hall, tablet in hand, looking focused. The caption read, "She's still here, just not beside him." The movement that had formed around this was no longer about a political scandal. In Chicago, a panel called "The Cost of Pretending" sold out in hours. A playwright in Boston started work on a one-woman show called "The Chair Beside Him." A university in Arizona announced a scholarship in Jasmine Crockett's name for courageous public integrity. Jasmine herself seemed almost removed from the storm she created. She showed up to speak at a leadership summit in Denver. The auditorium was packed. When the standing ovation finally quieted, she smiled. "I never meant to start a fire," she said. "I just stopped pretending I didn't smell the smoke." The room exhaled as one. I said one sentence about a woman's ring, and the country saw through it. Because it wasn't about jewelry. It wasn't even about her. It was about us. She paused, letting her final words land. And you know what scared them? Not the words I said, but the fact that people listened. Because the moment people listen, you can't control them anymore. In the end, Melania Trump never responded. She didn't have to. Her absence, her empty chair, her missing ring, her silence said everything. And Jasmine Crockett never spoke of it again. She had made her point. She had cracked the glass. And in doing so, she didn't just expose a fragile performance in the White House. She held up a mirror to the entire country, forcing us all to see the quiet ways we demand performance over truth, and the incredible power that's unleashed when one person finally decides to stop pretending. If this story made you think, if it made you feel something, don't just let it sit there. Talk about it. Share it. And if you want more stories that pull back the curtain and tell the truth, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started.